Welcome to the first episode of our channel's first series, The Lost Tales. Our aim with this series is to bring you short stories of different genres from across the internet every single week. And what better genre to begin with than some classic internet horror, better known as creepypastas. As J.K. Rowling best puts it, there's always room for a story that can transport people into another place. With that being one of our motivations, we bring you the first collection, narrated by two for productive peers, The Azazel's Blessing and Autopilot. And we hope you enjoy.
You know, I used to be hot shit. I had many friends, both at school and outside, and random people would come talk to me on the street. This was probably because I was a very sociable and open person, but mostly because I was pretty. Mostly my hair, though, which was long and very baby. People liked my looks, even though it took me a while to notice. So, why am I bragging about my status as a teenager? Because this happened. You see, even though I had a lot of hair, I didn't really care for it well. I used to dye it brown when I got bored with it, and I did a lot of blow drying because it was too heavy to get dry. Eventually, these things just began to take its toll on my hair. At first, I didn't really notice, but soon I was surprised at how easy it was to manage. I didn't really do anything with it though. I thought I had so much hair I could take it. Seems so stupid now. Eventually, though, I could no longer ignore it. I no longer had the courage to measure my ponytail. I could clearly see my scalp through my hairline, and I had to cut it to avoid the bottom from becoming too thin. I never had it so short before, which resulted in strange looks from my friends. When they asked about it, I just said I was trying something new, though they probably knew better. After a while, I started getting desperate. People whom I considered friends would no longer talk to me. Even my close friends. They started acting uncomfortable around me. I started looking for cures. First, I saw an ad for extensions. I was enthusiastic, at least before I read those damage your hair even more. So I went and ordered a couple of shampoos, which supposedly made your hair grow back, but none of them worked. They only made the remaining strands wider for a day or two. But by this point, I was on edge. I distinctly remember the day when I discovered bald spots in the mirror. I stayed up at night, crying, trying not to make my family notice. It made me prisoner in my own body. Eventually, I had to wear an awkward cap to prevent people from seeing my scalp. By now, I would do anything to get my long wavy hair back. I was still browsing products on eBay daily, hoping to find something that would be good enough or have good enough reviews to give it a try. After all, what options did I have? After clicking away at another hair thickening build fibers, hair loss concealer spray thickener, I saw a product called Azazel's Blessing. Given that its name was not some random arrangement of keywords in caps like all the other products, I decided to click the link and see what exactly it was. In all respects, it looked just like a shampoo bottle. The art of apples and decoration. The art of apples is decoration. But a couple of things were well off about it. For one, the seller's name wasn't a firm or something. It was just Morgan. Just like that. The name Azazel's Blessing was rather strange as well. And it wasn't Azazel's blessing hair thickening oil either, just Azazel's blessing. The description said, "Free yourselves from the chains of shame." Seems legit. I was about to click it away when I saw the reviews were almost universally positive. I hesitated. I checked the accounts, but they were not proxies or anything. People really liked this product. After some thought, I decided to give it a try. I had no other options left. After all, it was only $15, which was surprisingly cheap for this kind of product. A week or so later, Friday evening, the blessing arrived in a package. The bottle looked like I had seen it online, which was a good sign, I guess. The text on the bottle said, "Softly apply to the head." Enough? That night, I used the blessing for the first time during the shower. When I applied the oil, trying to avoid the bald spots, I felt this strange sensation. It's hard to describe, but it just felt great. Like some terrible pain or itch being relieved. Next morning, I felt a lot better, looked a lot better, and to my surprise, the bald spots looked a lot smaller. Being optimistic, I decided to go through with it the next shower. That morning, I could barely see the bald spots. My hair looked stronger and longer too. So naturally, I went through with it. It worked beyond my best expectations. A few weeks later, my hair all back to its former glory, even most of its length. I felt a lot more confident in school, having stopped wearing that awkward cap and not being worried about having it removed. My friends were surprised by how fast it had grown. But when they'd asked about it, I just responded, I'd been lucky. I kept the product secret instinctively, and honestly, I just liked seeing their confused looks after they'd been talking behind my back for so long. I replaced my old awkward cap wearing profile picture from Facebook with another which showed my new fabulous hair. When I measured my ponytail again, the circumference was 6.5 inches, more than I thought possible. I was relieved. And even when my hair fully restored, I just kept using the product, ordering extra bottles just because it felt so good. I mailed Morgan about the results of the oil. She said she was happy to help boys like me. When I asked her about some personal details, she just said she lived in Hinnom, which is somewhere in northern Israel, I believe. I live near Jerusalem myself. She was vague about everything else, but I didn't mind. Eventually, I started dating the girl I had a crush on for years, but whom I didn't have the courage to talk to, wearing that awkward cap. We saw Life of Pi together in theaters, and it just clicked. I don't know how. If she was just after my body, and back then, I didn't care either. She was not very pushy about it, anyways. I felt like I was the happiest boy in the world. Until I forgot to use the product one day. My white pillow was grey when I woke up from all the black hair that had fallen out. I panicked and noticed I shed a lot of the hair the entire day. But then I applied the oil next evening, and in the morning, my hair was shining, healthy again. I was relieved, but also anxious, because I suspected what would happen if the product wasn't available anymore. Thankfully, my girlfriend didn't seem to notice the incident when I told her. She, she said I still looked amazing and started playing with my hair. I love that feeling. It meant, just felt like I meant something to someone else. As I mentioned before, I was still mailing Morgan sometimes. One time I asked her where she got the product. She didn't answer the question. Instead, she sent this. Hey, Clark. That's not my real name. I don't want to reveal it here. Can you do something for me? The oil is hard to get, especially around these parts. I'd appreciate if you did something in return, since I'd been shipping the product to you for such a low price for so long. You see, my community has a problem with hawks catching our animals. When your next order arrives, it'll contain rat poison. That you have to put in the stream where the hawks drink. It would relieve my place of an awful burden. If you don't, I'm afraid I can't help you no longer. I won't continue to ship the product to you. Morgan. Needless to say, all that crap came unexpected. It made little sense. What domestic animals get caught by hawks? Do they keep masses of mice or something? Therefore, I decided I wouldn't partake in this unnecessary animal cruelty. When the box arrived, I half expected the rat poison to be not there, but it was. So I threw it in the trash and mailed Morgan I'd done exactly as she had told. Problem solved. Right? Wrong. A week later, I received another reply from Morgan. Clark, I'm afraid I have to stop the shipping of the oil. I thought you were better than this. Throwing it in, throwing all of the rat deposit in the damn waste. My brethren suffer every day because of these twisted birds. I'll give you one last chance. If you want to keep your pretty hair, you better listen to me. So I did. I want to go back to wearing that awkward cap. I want to lose my friends and status again. I want my girlfriend to look at me with that gaze that meant, what the hell happened to him? I knew it was all shady business, but please, you have to understand what was going on back then. From then on, however, I was hers. Cheating her, again, wasn't an option. Because apparently she knew everything that was going on, which made me feel really uneasy. When I asked her about it, politely of course, I didn't want to screw her again. She simply replied that she had her sources, which didn't sound comforting at all. After some time, she came up with new tasks which made equally little sense. I had to release goats from fields and farms and spray texts in Hebrew all over the places with graffiti and destroy certain decorative statues belonging to people. I felt increasingly more guilt when I was using the oil, but I told myself I had no choice. That to stop using the oil would be to commit social death. Eventually, she commanded me to burn down a supermarket in the neighboring town, which I did. I'm not going to tell you where it was, but I want you to know I regret it from the bottom of my heart. I was an idiot who cared only about looks and status. I have the guts to resist blackmail such as this. I just brought a lighter and a gasoline, poured it over the roof, hurried away as the place burned to the ground. The next day, I was still not quite over it, and I refused to talk to anyone. I shut myself in my room filled with guilt and shame. This had to stop. Which is why, when he asked me to burn down an occupied house in the next mail, I told him I wouldn't partake in any of this shit any longer. I told her to go to hell. Her response was simple. Hell? You have no idea. But it felt great. Even though I knew without the oil, my life would be completely different. And sure enough, within weeks, my hair lost almost all its volume and bald patches started to appear. I'm still losing hair to this day, so if you have any suggestions for products, please leave them here. My friends and family were surprisingly supportive, but at least a few of them. Many of my then closest friends still talk behind my back today. My girlfriend was very supportive too. Mostly. At least until I saw her holding another boy's hands. After which it was pretty much over. About a week after I'd stopped using the product, the house I was supposed to burn down had been consumed by fire, which made me think I, I should probably tell the police. But at this moment, I don't want to spend an year behind bars. Yesterday, Morgan sent me one last email. It was this. The angels are calling from heaven and above for those who have fallen with hatred for love. The guardians broken, the watchers are blind, they offer no shelter to all of mankind. The seal will be broken, the lock will be torn. His splendor will leave the old world forlorn. So, brethren, show your mirth, your payment is due. When he walks the earth, the world will rise anew.
Have you ever forgotten your phone? When did you realize you'd forgotten it? I'm guessing you didn't just smack your forehead and exclaim, "Damn," apropos of nothing. The realization probably didn't dawn on you spontaneously. More likely, you reached for your phone, pawing open your pocket or handbag, and were momentarily confused by it not being there. Then you did a mental recap of the morning's events. Crap. In my case, my phone's alarm woke me up as normal, but I realized the battery was lower than I expected. It was a new phone, and it had this annoying habit of leaving applications running that drained battery overnight. So I put it on to charge while I showered instead of into my bag like normal. It was momentary slip from the routine, but that's all it took. Once in shower, my brain got back into the routine. It follows every morning, and that was it. Forgotten. This wasn't just me being clumsy, as I later researched. This is a recognized brain function. Your brain doesn't just work on one level, it works on many. Like when you're walking somewhere, you think about your destination and avoiding hazards, but you don't need to think about keeping your legs moving properly. If you did, the entire world would turn into a massive, hilarious co-op cosplay. I wasn't thinking about regulating my breathing. I was thinking whether I should grab a coffee on the drive to work, which I did. I wasn't thinking about moving my breakfast through my intestines. I was wondering whether I'd finish on time and pick up my daughter Emily from the nursery after work or get stuck with another late fee. This is the thing. There's a level of your brain that just deals with routine so that the rest of the brain can think about the other things. Think about it. Think about your last commute. What do you actually remember? Probably little, if anything. Most common journeys blur into one, and recalling anyone in particular is scientifically proven to be difficult. Do something often enough and it becomes a routine. Keep doing it and it stops being processed by the thinking bit of the brain and it gets regulated to a part of the brain dedicated to dealing with routine. Your brain keeps doing it without you thinking about it. So when you think about your route to work as much as you do keeping your legs moving when you walk. Most people call it autopilot, but there's danger there if you have a break in your routine. Your ability to remember and account for the break is only as good as your ability to stop your brain from going to routine mode. My ability to remember my phone being on the counter is only as reliable as my ability to stop my brain entering from morning routine mode, which would dictate that my phone is actually in my bag. But I didn't stop my brain entering routine mode. I got in the shower as normal. Routine started. Exception, forgot. Autopilot, engaged. My brain was back in the routine. I showered, I shaved. The radio forecasted amazing weather. I gave Emily her breakfast and loaded her into the car. She was so adorable that morning. She complained about the bad sun in the morning, blinding her, saying it stopped her from having a little sleep on the way to the nursery, and left. That was the routine. It didn't matter that my phone was on the counter, charging silently. My brain was in the routine, and the routine with my phone was in my bag. This is why I forgot my phone. Not clumsiness, not negligence. Nothing more, my brain entering routine mode and overriding the exception. Autopilot engaged. I left for work in a swelteringly hot day already. The bad sun had been burning since before my traitorously absent phone woke me. The steering wheel was burning hot to the touch when I sat down. I think I heard Emily shift over behind my driver's seat to get out of the glare. But I got to work, submitted the report, attended the morning meeting. It's not until I took a quick coffee break and reached for my phone that the illusion shattered. I did a mental restep. I remembered the dying battery. I remembered putting it on charge. I remembered leaving it there. My phone was on the counter. Autopilot disengaged. Again, there lies the danger. Until you have the moment you reach for your phone and shatter the illusion. That part of the brain is still in routine mode. It has no reason to question the facts of the routine. That's why it's a routine. The act of repetition. It's not as if anyone could say, why didn't you remember your phone? Didn't it occur to you? How could you forget? You must be negligent. This is to miss the point. My brain was telling me the routine was completed as normal, despite the fact that it wasn't. It wasn't that I forgot my phone. According to my brain, according to the routine, my phone was in my bag. Why would I think to question it? Why would I check? Why would I suddenly remember out of nowhere that my phone was on the counter? My brain was wired into the routine. The routine was that my phone was in my bag. The day continued to bake. The morning haze gave way to the relentless fever heat of the afternoon. Tarmac bubbled. The direct beams of the heat threatened to crack the pavement. People swapped coffees for iced smoothies, jackets discarded, sleeves rolled up, ties loosened, bros smoked. The park slowly filled with sunbathers and barbecues. Window frames threatened to warp. The thermometer continued to swell. Thank God the offices were air-conditioned. But as ever, the furnace of the day gave way to a cooler evening. Another day, another dollar. Still cursing myself for forgetting my phone. I drove home. The day's heat had baked the inside of the car, releasing a horrible smell from somewhere. When I arrived on the driveway, the stones crunching comfortingly under my tires. My wife greeted me at the door. "Where's Emily?" Oh God. As if the phone wasn't bad enough. After everything, I'd left Emily at the nursery after all. I immediately sped back to the nursery. I got to the door and started practicing my excuses, wondering vainly if I could charm my way out of a late fee. I saw a piece of paper stuck to the door. Due to vandalism overnight, please use side door today only. Overnight? What? The door was fine this morning. I froze. My knees shook. Vandals. A change in the routine. My phone was on the counter. I hadn't been here this morning. My phone was on the counter. I'd driven past because I was drinking my coffee. I not dropped off Emily. My phone was on the counter. She'd moved her seat. I hadn't seen her in the mirror. My phone was on the counter. She'd fallen asleep out of the bad sun. She didn't speak when I drove past her nursery. My phone was on the counter. She changed the routine. My phone was on the counter. She changed the routine and I'd forgotten to drop her off. My phone was on the counter. 9 hours, that car, that baking sun, no air, no water, no power, no help, that heat, a steering wheel too hot to touch, that smell. I walked to the car door. Numb. Shock. I opened the door. My phone was on the counter. My daughter was dead. Autopilot disengaged.